Imagine that you live the perfect life, a faithful marriage, success at work, and a comfortable life. Now imagine that everything is ruined because one mysterious phone number suddenly disappears from your contacts. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this single missing number set off a chain of events so shocking that it drew me into a world of forbidden passion, betrayal, and conspiracy that defies comprehension? And now let us begin our story. I remember the day everything began with a jolt, a sudden intrusion into my otherwise meticulously crafted double life. I am Adam, a man who appears to live the picture of suburban perfection, a successful career, a comfortable home, and Eleanor, my devoted wife, whose gentle smile and unwavering kindness anchor our life together. Yet beneath this serene facade, a tempest of desire and duplicity roiled quietly, known only to me, and a single, tantalizing secret, the elusive phone number of a woman who had ignited a passion I never knew existed. It had started innocently enough on a humid summer evening when I found myself wandering through a gallery opening downtown. I was drawn not to the art on the walls but to a woman standing alone, her presence both enigmatic and magnetic. Her eyes held a challenge, a spark that promised a life beyond the mundane routine I shared with Eleanor. In the blur of conversation and flirtatious glances, she whispered her name, Veronica, while casually mentioning that she preferred to keep a low profile. The only tangible link between us, a lifeline for future secret rendezvous, was the phone number she offered in hushed tones. I tucked those digits away in my mind as if they were a precious incantation, knowing well that this number would become my gateway to a world where I could be truly alive. For weeks, every stolen moment was orchestrated around that number. I would press it into the hidden recesses of my phone's contacts, naming it with a code that only I could decipher. Each late-night text, each carefully arranged meeting, was a delicate balancing act. At home, I was the attentive husband, smiling, dutiful, and blissfully unaware of the storm raging beneath the surface. With Veronica, however, I surrendered to a thrilling anonymity that made my pulse quicken with every ping of a new message. Yet, as the days turned into nights and passion turned into routine, an unsettling feeling began to gnaw at me. One ordinary morning, as I sipped my coffee before Eleanor awoke, I reached for my phone out of habit to review the messages from Veronica, a comforting ritual that kept my secret burning bright. To my shock, her contact was nowhere to be found. My carefully hidden entry, the very key to the clandestine world I had built, had vanished. At first, I assumed it was a mere glitch, a simple error in synchronization or a momentary lapse in memory, but as the minutes turned into an anxious hour of fruitless searching through call logs and texts, dread took root. The disappearance of that number was not just the loss of digits, it symbolized the erosion of the sanctuary where my hidden desires had flourished. In that moment, I realized how fragile my double life truly was. Every text, every call, every secret rendezvous was a risk that the fragile wall separating my two worlds could crumble at any moment. I replayed that night over and over in my mind, the way Veronica's eyes had flickered with mischief, the sound of her voice as she murmured the digits, the thrill of her secretive allure. How could something so vital vanish into thin air? Had I made an error in saving it, or was there someone else meddling in my affairs? The loss gnawed at me relentlessly. I began retracing my steps, revisiting the gallery, scanning through dimly lit bars where we had shared whispered conversations, and even questioning a few acquaintances who might have witnessed our encounter. Each place seemed to hold a ghost of her presence, yet none offered any clue as to where the number had gone. The absence of that connection became a chasm in my daily life, a constant reminder that no secret remains safe forever. And as I struggled to come to terms with this gap, an undercurrent of suspicion emerged. Had someone discovered my hidden escapade? Was Eleanor, my ever-watchful wife, somehow onto me? Or was it Veronica herself orchestrating a final, cruel twist in our dalliance? That day, as I sat alone in the silent pre-dawn hours, I couldn't shake the feeling that the disappearance of her number was the opening move of a dangerous game, a game with stakes higher than I had ever imagined. Every ring of my phone, every unexpected notification, now seemed laden with ominous possibility. The mystery of the missing number was no longer just about a lost contact, it was a harbinger of secrets yet to be unraveled, of betrayals looming on the horizon, and of a life teetering on the brink of explosive revelations. The emptiness left by Veronica's vanishing contact quickly morphed into an insidious obsession. I found myself scrutinizing every detail of that fateful encounter, convinced that the missing number was not simply a technological glitch or an oversight on my part. It was a deliberate act, one that hinted at far more than a fleeting dalliance. Every familiar setting that had once been a stage for secret rendezvous now pulsed with a sinister rhythm, each sound and shadow seeming to conspire against me. After that unnerving morning, I began to dissect the remnants of my clandestine communication. The encrypted messages, the late-night texts, and even the almost forgotten voicemail left me with a gnawing suspicion: someone was meddling with my private world. My gut told me that this wasn't merely a case of poor memory or a faulty phone, it was a carefully orchestrated move designed to unsettle me. I decided to retrace every step that had led to the exchange of that elusive number. I revisited the art gallery where our fateful meeting had unfolded. The same white walls, now echoing with the soft murmur of disinterested patrons, seemed oblivious to the drama that had once unfolded within them. Yet, as I stood there, a chill crawled up my spine when I noticed a peculiar detail, a small, almost imperceptible smudge on the spot where Veronica had stood. It wasn't much, but it felt like a breadcrumb left behind intentionally, urging me to dig deeper. That evening, my thoughts became an endless spiral of what-ifs. I began questioning every interaction I'd had with her, every shared laugh, every fleeting touch. Had I misread her signals? Was she, in fact, playing a dangerous game that went beyond a mere extramarital affair? The deeper I probed, the murkier everything became. It was as if Veronica had mastered the art of leaving just enough traces to draw me in, only to vanish like a wisp of smoke before I could piece together the full picture. My anxiety took a physical form. I started noticing small, unnerving details: a black sedan idling across the street whenever I left home, fleeting silhouettes in the mirror, and even an anonymous text that popped up at midnight. The message was brief, chilling in its simplicity: some secrets are best left buried. I stared at it for what felt like an eternity, each word etching a deeper layer of dread into my mind. Who could have sent it? And more importantly, what did it mean for my carefully compartmentalized life? Determined to unravel the mystery, I sought help from an old acquaintance known in certain circles as a digital sleuth. Mike was a shadowy figure with expertise in cyber forensics, a man who could uncover the footprints of the unseen. He agreed to help, and in a discreet corner of a dimly lit cafe, I explained my plight. Mike's eyes narrowed as he listened, the kind of look that spoke of years navigating the murky back alleys of digital subterfuge. "Your phone logs are tampered with," he said quietly, sliding his tablet across the table. "I'm picking up traces of a remote access tool, something designed to wipe or alter data selectively. It wasn't an accident, Adam. Someone wanted to erase Veronica's number from your records." His words confirmed my worst fears. My digital world had been infiltrated by a professional hand, one capable of erasing evidence without leaving a trace. That revelation sent a shiver down my spine. The invasion of my privacy was not just a breach of trust, it was an act of war against the sanctuary of my hidden life. It made me wonder, was this the work of a rival, someone with a vendetta against me? Or was it, even more disturbingly, the handiwork of Veronica herself? The thought that she might be orchestrating an elaborate test of my resolve, pulling the strings from behind a veil of mystery, was both tantalizing and terrifying. As the days turned into sleepless nights, paranoia took root. Every phone call, every unexpected knock at the door, felt like a harbinger of impending doom. The delicate balance between my two lives was on the verge of collapse. I began to suspect that my wife, Eleanor, might have sensed the shifts in our routine, a subtle shift in my demeanor that she could no longer ignore. Was it possible that she had her own suspicions about my secret escapades? The very idea sent a tremor through my heart, for it meant that my world was about to implode in more ways than one. Caught in this maelstrom of uncertainty, I started piecing together a theory that grew increasingly complex by the minute. The altered logs, the anonymous warnings, and the disappearing contact all suggested that I was not merely a passive participant in my own downfall. I was entangled in a web spun by someone, or something, that knew every vulnerable corner of my life. Each unanswered question and each new clue only deepened the mystery. It became clear that this was no ordinary affair, it was a labyrinth of secrets where trust was a currency I could no longer afford, and every revelation came at a dangerous cost. That night, as I huddled in the sterile glow of my study, I stared at the blinking cursor on my computer screen, a silent witness to the chaos unfolding in my mind. The message from that anonymous number repeated itself in my head like a refrain. I realized that the key to saving my crumbling world lay in confronting the unknown head-on, even if it meant delving deeper into a mire of betrayal and danger. With a reluctant resolve, I prepared myself to step into the shadows and face the truth, whatever it might be. In the relentless hush of sleepless nights, I found myself obsessively revisiting every detail of the digital carnage that had upended my hidden world. Mike's revelations about the tampered phone logs were a wake-up call, a clear indication that someone was not only monitoring my clandestine communications but was also expertly erasing every trace of them. As I sat in the dim light of my study, I pieced together the digital breadcrumbs left behind, an almost imperceptible code fragment buried deep in my phone's system logs, a signature of sorts that hinted at an operative with a level of expertise far beyond that of a casual hacker. It wasn't just about deleting a number, it was an act calculated to cover tracks, to hide an agenda much larger than an illicit affair. That same evening, as if the universe had chosen that precise moment to accelerate my descent into paranoia, an unexpected text arrived on a burner phone I had set aside for emergencies. The message was terse and unnervingly familiar. Curiosity is a dangerous friend, Adam. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. There was no name attached, no hint of origin, only a warning that set my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling that this cryptic note was a direct response to my probing questions about Veronica and the mysterious disappearance of her number. The next day, I met with Mike in his cluttered, shadow-filled office. Surrounded by banks of monitors and tangled cables, we re-examined every digital trace that we could recover. "Look here," Mike said, his finger hovering over a particularly suspicious log entry on his screen. "This remote access tool isn't something ordinary, it's bespoke, almost surgical in its precision. Whoever engineered this knew exactly what they were doing. They not only wanted to remove Veronica's number, but they intended to leave you in a state of disarray." Mike's words echoed in my mind as I tried to recall any past encounters or connections that might link to such an operation. Was it possible that an old rival from my corporate days was re-emerging from the shadows, or was I, in fact, entangled in something far more complex than a simple extramarital tryst? As doubts and suspicions festered, a subtle, almost imperceptible change began to ripple through my everyday life. I noticed a black sedan parked at a distance whenever I left the house. I caught fleeting glimpses of a figure in a dark coat, their gaze lingering too long on my route home. Even my wife, Eleanor, who always exuded calm and certainty, began to seem oddly perceptive, her quiet observations and the way her eyes would occasionally narrow as if she sensed the invisible weight bearing down on our lives. Was it possible that she had started to piece together the puzzle, or was I simply projecting my own paranoia onto her? The tension reached its apex one rainy night when an unexpected visitor appeared at my doorstep. The knock was soft but insistent. When I opened the door, no one stood there, only an unmarked envelope left on the welcome mat. With trembling fingers, I opened it to find a single, grainy photograph. It showed me from an angle I hadn't been aware of, a snapshot that captured my solitary figure against the backdrop of my living room, taken from a vantage point that was undeniably foreign. On the back of the photo, inscribed in a neat, almost mocking handwriting, was a message. "In this game, you're never the only player." The photograph was a stark reminder that my every move was being watched, that the fragile boundaries between my public facade and secret desires were dissolving under the weight of an unseen conspiracy. Desperate for answers, I arranged a meeting with Veronica. The location was an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city, a setting that suited the surreal drama unfolding in my life. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of rust and rain, the echoes of our footsteps on concrete amplifying the dread that hung in the air. There, in a pool of flickering light cast by a lone, swinging bulb, stood Veronica. Her presence was both magnetic and enigmatic, and the weariness in her eyes betrayed a world of secrets that she had long borne alone. Before I could unleash my barrage of questions, she cut me off with a low, almost sorrowful murmur, "Adam, you've been digging too deep. Some truths are meant to remain hidden." Her tone was a mix of regret and warning, a prelude to a revelation that would shatter every illusion I had built around our affair. I pressed her, desperate to understand the true significance of her disappearing contact and the disturbing signs that now permeated every corner of my life. With a heavy sigh, Veronica confessed that she was entangled in a far more perilous game than either of us had ever imagined. She explained that the deletion of her number was not a misstep or a mere digital anomaly, it was a deliberate act, orchestrated under duress by an organization that wielded data as both weapon and currency. This clandestine group specialized in manipulating digital identities and personal secrets for high-stakes political and corporate espionage. Veronica, it turned out, was caught in their crosshairs. She had been coerced into erasing every connection between us to protect herself, and, by extension, me, from a danger far greater than our own forbidden liaison. Her revelation was as staggering as it was disorienting. The careful, calculated removal of her number was only one piece of an intricate mosaic of deception. I realized, with a sinking dread, that my role in this drama was not that of a willing adulterer but rather a pawn ensnared in a game of secrets and power plays. Every seemingly random act, the mysterious texts, the surveillance, even Eleanor's subtle, knowing glances, now took on a new, ominous meaning. As the echoes of Veronica's confession reverberated through the cold, empty space of the warehouse, I felt the ground shift beneath me. I was standing at the precipice of a revelation that promised to dismantle everything I thought I knew about loyalty, identity, and trust. With the weight of my choices bearing down on me, I left the warehouse that night with more questions than answers. The labyrinth of shadows had only just begun to reveal its dark corridors, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. Haunted by the chilling revelations from that desolate warehouse, I returned to my home under a shroud of disquiet. Every step I took felt burdened by an unseen force, a presence lurking in the half-light of my days and the even darker corridors of my nights. The discovery that Veronica's number had been meticulously erased was no longer an isolated mishap, it was a symptom of a far more insidious manipulation that had seeped into every aspect of my existence. Within the confines of my study, I became a man possessed. I spent countless hours poring over every snippet of our past conversations, the subtext of her cryptic warnings, and even the anomalies in the call logs Mike had painstakingly unearthed. I was convinced that behind each digital artifact lay a message, a code designed to draw me deeper into a labyrinth of espionage and betrayal. But as I reconstructed the sequence of events, every clue only served to fracture my already fragile understanding of reality. I felt as if I were trapped in a hall of mirrors, where each reflection distorted not only my image but also the very truth of who I was. Eleanor, my devoted wife, had never before seemed so enigmatic. In recent weeks, her eyes carried a subtle but disquieting glint, a mixture of quiet sorrow and a knowing intensity that I could neither decipher nor dismiss. Our once peaceful evenings were now punctuated by long silences and guarded glances. I began to wonder if she, too, was privy to secrets that lay hidden beneath our outwardly mundane lives. The thought that Eleanor might be entangled in this dark game, a conspirator rather than an innocent bystander, gnawed at me relentlessly. Each seemingly ordinary gesture took on an ominous undertone, deepening the chasm of distrust that threatened to engulf everything I held dear. Then, one storm-lashed night, as rain battered the windows and thunder rolled like distant cannons, my phone buzzed with an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Truth is a double-edged mirror." The body of the message was equally cryptic, a terse set of coordinates paired with a date and a single, haunting instruction: meet me where the past meets the present. The words reverberated in my mind, their ominous cadence a stark reminder that every move I made was being meticulously orchestrated by forces far beyond my control. Unable to resist the pull of a truth that, however dangerous, promised clarity, I followed the directions. The coordinates led me to an abandoned mansion on the outskirts of the city, a crumbling relic overtaken by ivy and the whispers of a forgotten era. Its once grand facade now stood as a monument to decay, each weathered stone and rusted ornament a silent testament to lost secrets. The heavy, creaking door swung open as if welcoming me to a world suspended between memory and menace. Inside, the mansion was a study in contrasts: vast, shadowed halls juxtaposed against dim, flickering candlelight. Every step I took stirred up motes of dust and memories long consigned to oblivion. In the echoing silence of the grand foyer, I found myself face to face with a solitary figure, draped in a worn cloak that concealed more than it revealed. The figure's presence was both commanding and sorrowful, as if burdened by a lifetime of witnessing the truth unravel. "Adam," the figure said, their voice low and deliberate, cutting through the silence like a knife through glass. "I've been expecting you." I felt a chill ripple down my spine. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice quivering as I struggled to maintain composure. The figure's eyes, barely visible beneath the hood, shone with a mix of empathy and grim determination. "You are entangled in a web woven by those who manipulate secrets as if they were currency. The deletion of Veronica's number was merely the opening move, a distraction from a far more dangerous game." The stranger's words resonated deep within me, stirring long-suppressed doubts and fears. They continued, "Your life, your choices, and the lies you've nurtured all reflect off a fractured mirror. Every secret you keep, every betrayal you commit, is magnified and distorted by those who seek to control you. The person you thought you knew, both yourself and those around you, is merely a facade, crumbling under the weight of concealed truths." As the storm raged outside, I realized that my double life was not solely a product of my own misdeeds. I had been cast as a pawn in a far more complex chess game, where even my most intimate relationships were pieces to be moved, sacrificed, or manipulated by unseen hands. The mansion, with its eerie echoes of the past, became a symbolic stage where my hidden sins and the machinations of a shadowy organization converged. In that moment, I was presented with a choice: retreat into the relative safety of ignorance or plunge headlong into the abyss of truth. The figure's presence suggested that there were answers, dangerous, transformative answers, that could shatter the illusions holding my life together. With a mixture of trepidation and grim resolve, I stepped forward into the darkness, leaving behind the remnants of my former self and venturing into a realm where every reflection was a reminder of the betrayal that had already cost me so dearly. The encounter left me with more questions than answers. Who exactly was orchestrating this elaborate manipulation? And how deep did the conspiracy run? Did it reach into the heart of my marriage, into the soul of Eleanor herself? With the storm subsiding outside, I knew that my journey had only just begun. The fractured mirror of my life promised more revelations, and each new shard of truth was likely to cut deeper than the last. In the wake of the eerie encounter at the abandoned mansion, my reality began to splinter in ways I could never have foreseen. The revelations and cryptic messages had plunged me into a labyrinth where every shadow held a secret, and every whispered hint pointed to a conspiracy that stretched far beyond a mere extramarital affair. As the days blurred into restless nights, I realized that the threads of manipulation were not confined to my digital communications or clandestine meetings, they had woven themselves into the very fabric of my personal life. One rainy evening, the atmosphere in our home felt charged with an unspoken urgency. I had spent the better part of the day replaying the confessions I'd received from Veronica and the mysterious figure at the mansion. My mind, still reeling from the notion that I was a pawn in a dangerous game, couldn't rest until I found answers. With every passing hour, the overwhelming pressure to uncover the truth intensified. I needed to confront the one person whose every gesture and subtle glance had suddenly taken on a foreboding significance: Eleanor, my wife. I found her in the quiet solace of our living room, a place that for years had been a sanctuary from the outside world. The soft glow of a table lamp revealed an expression on her face that was both sorrowful and determined, a look that betrayed a hidden past. I hesitated, not sure if my heart was ready for the revelation that I sensed was imminent. But in that charged silence, the dam of unspoken truths broke. Eleanor's eyes, usually warm and inviting, now shimmered with the weight of secrets. With measured words and a trembling voice, she began to divulge a part of herself that I had never imagined. Long before we built our life together, Eleanor had been deeply entangled in the murky world of corporate espionage. A brilliant strategist in a covert branch of intelligence, she had mastered the art of maneuvering through webs of lies and half-truths. That expertise had made her both an asset and a target, and it was a past she had tried desperately to leave behind. But the organization that once manipulated her had not forgotten its mark, and it was now weaving that old network of betrayal into our present. Her confession was as shocking as it was heartbreaking. She explained that the digital manipulations, the deletion of Veronica's number, the eerie, targeted messages, and even the surveillance, were all part of a meticulously orchestrated plan. The organization, operating under the guise of a shadowy conglomerate, had been exploiting vulnerabilities in our lives. My affair with Veronica, which I had naively considered an escape from routine, was merely a trigger that set into motion a cascade of events engineered to destabilize both of us. Their aim was to use our personal secrets as leverage, a way to control not only our actions but also to extract valuable information hidden within our pasts. Eleanor's revelation left me suspended between disbelief and a desperate need for clarity. How could the woman I had shared countless quiet evenings and dreams with be connected to a world so dark and ruthless? Yet, as she recounted the relentless pressure she had faced and the covert operations that had once been her realm, I recognized the truth in her eyes. The subtle signs, the sleepless nights, the anxious glances over her shoulder, the cryptic phone calls, suddenly fell into place as pieces of a larger, more sinister puzzle. As the storm outside raged and the rain painted ghostly patterns on the windows, we began to piece together the fragments of our new reality. Eleanor revealed encrypted messages hidden in old work files and explained how seemingly innocuous details, a misplaced document on her laptop, a suspicious transaction in our joint bank account, were coded signals from her former contacts. Each clue was a breadcrumb leading us closer to the organization's next move. It became apparent that our lives, which had once been neatly divided into public decorum and private indulgence, were now irrevocably interwoven into a vast network of deceit. Determined to reclaim our autonomy and expose the puppeteers behind this elaborate scheme, we forged an uneasy alliance. Combining her insider knowledge and my own desperate need to untangle the web of lies, we began to meticulously document every anomaly. Late-night meetings in hushed tones, furtive glances exchanged over encrypted messages, and days spent poring over digital logs became the new rhythm of our existence. With each discovery, we edged closer to an enemy that had grown more formidable than either of us could have anticipated, a force capable of bending truth and loyalty to its own sinister purposes. Yet, as we delved deeper, a haunting question loomed over every plan we made: who exactly was orchestrating this grand manipulation? The mysterious figure from the mansion had hinted that every secret, every betrayal, was being magnified by a master conspirator. And now, with Eleanor's past coming into sharp focus, I began to suspect that the web of deceit might have been spun long before our lives ever intertwined. The stakes had risen far beyond our personal drama, they were a matter of survival and truth, in a world where every hidden connection had the power to bring everything crashing down. Now, as I sit in the dim light of our study with Eleanor by my side, I realize that our journey into this murky realm is only just beginning. The path ahead is riddled with uncertainty and peril, yet the determination to uncover the truth burns brighter than the fear of what we might find. We have accepted that our lives are no longer our own, they belong to a narrative written by unseen hands, one that we are now resolved to rewrite. Each new piece of evidence, every coded message, fuels our resolve to break free from the chains of manipulation and reclaim the sanctity of our existence. It all came to a head on a bitterly cold night when an encrypted message arrived, a final summons from an unknown source promising answers that would shatter every carefully constructed lie. Eleanor and I exchanged a look laden with the weight of unspoken truths. Our lives, already a tangled web of betrayal and covert pasts, had reached the point of no return. With no choice but to face the darkness head-on, we set out for a derelict industrial complex on the outskirts of the city, a place that, like our lives, seemed abandoned by time and overrun by secrets. The journey there was punctuated by a palpable tension. Every mile seemed to draw us closer not only to the location but also to an inevitable confrontation with the puppeteers who had manipulated our every move. As we neared the sprawling, rusted structure, the night grew colder and the silence more oppressive. In the dim light of our car's headlights, the building's broken windows and sagging roof appeared as if they were the eyes and fangs of some ancient beast, waiting patiently to devour any remnant of our past. Inside, the cavernous hallways echoed with our tentative footsteps. Shadows danced along the peeling walls, and every creak of the floorboards resonated like a heartbeat in the oppressive quiet. Guided by the faint glow of emergency exit signs and the intermittent flash of our phone screens, we advanced cautiously. I couldn't shake the memory of that earlier photograph, a candid snapshot of my life observed from the darkness, and it now loomed over me as an ominous reminder of how deeply we had been ensnared. In a vast, open chamber at the heart of the complex, a solitary figure waited. Draped in a long, dark coat and partially obscured by the interplay of light and shadow, the individual exuded an air of cold authority. As we drew nearer, the figure slowly raised a hand in greeting, a gesture that was at once welcoming and foreboding. Then, in a fluid, deliberate motion, the hood was pulled back. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the face that emerged. It was Mike. For a moment, time itself seemed to fracture. Mike, the digital sleuth who had once been our clandestine guide through the maze of manipulated logs and coded warnings, stood before us not as an ally, but as the architect of our descent. His eyes, once warm with the camaraderie of shared secrets, now burned with a cold, unyielding resolve. "Adam, Eleanor," he began, his voice echoing in the vast emptiness, "you must understand that every step you took was never random. Your affair, your doubts, the disappearance of Veronica's number, all were calculated maneuvers designed to lead you here." His tone was neither accusatory nor consoling, merely stating an incontrovertible fact. I was tasked with ensuring that the seeds of chaos were sown, so that when the time came, the true face of our enemy could be revealed. A surge of conflicting emotions tore through me. Anger, betrayal, and a profound sense of isolation mingled as I struggled to comprehend the extent of the deception. How many layers of our lives have been orchestrated by a hidden hand? The revelation that Mike had been complicit, perhaps even instrumental, in the manipulation of my private world cut deeper than any betrayal I had ever known. I remembered the anxious phone calls, the furtive glances, and the cryptic messages that had propelled me deeper into this labyrinth. They were all part of his design. Eleanor's eyes, brimming with unshed tears, met mine with a mix of sorrow and steely determination. In a voice that trembled with both pain and resolve, she confessed, "I once believed that my past in covert operations was behind me. I thought I could leave that life to protect us, to build something real. But they were always one step ahead. I tried to warn you, Adam, but you were too far gone in your own rebellion against a life I had chosen out of love." Mike's involvement, it was all part of a plan to dismantle the network that has controlled us for so long. Before I could press further, Mike interjected, "Your personal dramas were the perfect cover. The organization I serve does not simply manipulate data or erase phone numbers, they manipulate lives. And tonight, you stand at the precipice of a reckoning." The organization had its own agenda, to expose vulnerabilities in the system by turning personal betrayal into a public spectacle. You were the bait, and every secret you harbored was a lure. In that charged moment, the realization hit me with a force as cold and unyielding as the concrete walls surrounding us. The intricate dance between love, lust, and betrayal had been nothing more than a ruse, an elaborate experiment in control. Veronica's fleeting presence, her secret number, even my illicit escapade were all variables in a larger equation engineered by forces I could neither comprehend nor oppose. Yet, even as the weight of that truth threatened to crush me, another, subtler shift occurred. Eleanor stepped forward, her voice rising above the oppressive silence. "No more," she declared. "We have been pawns for far too long. It is time to reclaim our lives." In that instant, the veneer of deception began to crack. The alliance that had been imposed upon us by unseen manipulators was dissolving into a shared determination to seize control of our destiny. The air seemed to thicken with a new energy, a mixture of defiance and sorrow, resolve and regret. I realized that while our private transgressions had led us down a path of destruction, they had also awakened in us a fierce desire for truth and liberation. We had been betrayed, manipulated, and used, yet in this moment, we had the power to decide our own fate. As Mike's expression hardened and the distant echoes of his final warning reverberated around us, I made a choice. The secrets that had once promised escape had now become the catalyst for our revolution, a call to shatter the chains of manipulation once and for all. In that final, fateful confrontation, I understood that nothing would ever be the same. The double life I had clung to, the lies I had told myself about love and betrayal, had all been a prelude to a reckoning that would leave scars too deep to heal. The night ended not with the vindication of an exposed conspiracy, but with the bitter taste of hard-won truth. As we stepped out of the shadowed complex and into the uncertain light of dawn, Eleanor's hand found mine, a silent promise that, together, we would rebuild from the ruins. The final secret, it seemed, was not just the erased phone number or the covert messages, but the realization that in the interplay of love, betrayal, and deception, the only true power lay in choosing to face the truth, however painful it might be.